What up? Welcome in to another episode of the MLB Swing for the Fences show here on the Run Pure Sports YouTube channel, talking Thursday mornings, 8-game MLB slate. We got some day baseball, NBA playoffs, and the NFL draft. Third and long, fun day of sports today, no question about it. Kicking off, of course, with I think a pretty fun early baseball slate. How you doing on this Thursday morning, Bryce?
I'm great. Love draft day. Really like day baseball, just kind of not like get it out of the way, but, you get a day sweat and then, got the NBA playoffs tonight, got hockey playoffs going. NFL draft is just really solid day of sports.
Yeah, can't complain. I wish we had day baseball like every day. I like these, doing these early shows, breaking it down, watching the games, and then especially when there's NBA playoffs at night, right? Where I'm usually kind of, depending on what kind of sweats I got going on, but wish we could, get this going every day, but we certainly have it today. So we'll try to pick some winners. And I'm excited for the NFL draft. Do you have a team in the NFL, Bryce, that you root for mostly?
So I grew up a Steelers fan. Like my family's from Pittsburgh, so kind of. But like since I moved to Indiana, like I go to a couple Colts games a year, so I'd consider myself like kind of both. But I have so much on the line every Sunday. It's like kind of hard to root for a team. Like the Pirates are the team I really root for.
Yeah. I mean, that's anyone that's playing any decent volume in DFS or betting, you're rooting with your money. It's always the case. Like I root for the Vikings, obviously growing up, and then kind of adopted the Chiefs as well. And so those are my two teams. But if I don't have Mahomes on my main DFS teams, then I'm rooting for somebody else primarily. So I think that's probably the case for a lot of people watching. But the NFL draft, nevertheless, a fun time. I'm excited to see what my Vikings end up doing. Obviously, kind of made some trades, got a lot of ammunition, need a quarterback. So we'll see there. Any hot takes on the NFL draft or NBA before we kick it off into baseball? We got some people still trickling in this morning, so we could spend a little time here. Anything, any big bets for you? Anything like that on the NFL draft?
I haven't placed any bets yet, but if I do, I'll be sure to post them in the bets channel and the NFL channel, over at Run Pure Sports. But I mean, I just think it's a really strong draft overall. Like especially for offensive talent, it seems. I mean, to me, this has the potential to be the best receiver draft of all time. Like I think you have some pretty like can't miss guys near the top, and then like you have some really good guys in like the second and third rounds that you can pick up too. I think my favorite guy relative to like his projected draft position would be like Tez Walker out of Carolina. I'm pretty high on him in Drake May in general. I mean, I think Jaden Daniels is really good too. I mean, Neighbors can't really miss with him. I think I like all the receivers.
Who's that Oregon kid? I think Tez. Is it Tez
Oregon guy.
They got a speedster. I think he's like a second or third round.
I think the speedster is out of Texas. Xavier Worthy set the combine record for
Troy Franklin. I think is the guy that I'm thinking of. From
Troy Franklin's up there too. I kind of prefer the guys out of Washington. I like Adunze a lot. I like McMillan a lot. But I mean, Troy Franklin's a good player too. As I said earlier, this is one of the best offensive drafts in a long time. I think the one big mistake is like teams moving up to take JJ McCarthy. So I kind of hope your Vikings don't end up on him.
That's what I'm hoping for too. I don't want JJ McCarthy
like
at 5.
If I had to guess what quarterback they get, it would be McCarthy. But there's been a lot of smoke to him, or smoke about him going 3 to the Pats, and I don't really see them taking him over Drake May. I think that would be a huge mistake. I'm pretty high on May and Tez Walker out of Carolina, so kind of interested to see how it plays out. I would love if the Colts got like a receiver, like if they moved up a couple picks to get like an Adunze type. I think that would be a really strong move. You have really good offensive linemen too for teams that need them. I mean, Brock Bowers, has potential to be like top 5 NFL tight end when he walks into the league. There's not many guys that are pro-made like him. So, I think he's an offensive changing player as well.
Yeah, I feel like your Colts need some speed on the perimeter to go with that big arm Richardson has, and then Pittman over the middle, right? Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I could even see the Colts like moving back to try and take like an absolute speedster like Xavier Worthy. I think Adonai Mitchell has some of the highest upside in the draft class. I kind of think he sneaks into the back end of the first round. Um, I don't love Nix and Penix. I think I'd rather like if you don't get one of the top QBs, I think I'd rather drop down a bit. I don't mind like if a team ends up with them in the first round, I think that's a better play than a JJ McCarthy, in my opinion. But I that's why they play the games to see. But it's a pretty good draft for guys who need offensive talent.
My worry about Penix is his weapons were just so good. I mean, I tweeted out during the season that like the Huskies, Washington Huskies, in my opinion, had a better wide receiver room than some NFL teams. That's a crazy thing to say, but
I mean, Jalen Polk's an elite player too, and
that's what I think too.
you can
Yeah,
see
all three
him
of them.
sneaking into the back end of the first round. I
Yep.
think McMillan will be the last one picked. He's more of like the slot guy with
Yep.
more of a limited NFL role than the other guys.
But he's going to be good too. I think all three of those
Yeah.
Washington guys are going to be good pros. So yeah, really, really fun draft. I can't wait for it. I think we're going to see a bunch of trades. I think the DraftKings line on trades in the first round is like 6.5 or something like that. So should be fun night of NFL draft. Of course, we got NBA playoffs as well. And yeah, can't wait for all that. But we got baseball first. So with that, let's jump right into it. We'll go game by game, of course, starting with Philadelphia and the Cincinnati Reds. Zach Wheeler on the hill for the Phillies. He's been pretty much what you'd expect from Zach Wheeler. He's been awesome this year. I think on the short list of best pitchers in baseball, at least for me, is Mr. Wheeler. He'll go opposite Nick Martinez, who pitched his last two outings, I believe, out of the bullpen. Did throw 90 and 92 pitches in his first two outings of the year. He's made 4 appearances. So he should, I think, be able to go mid-80s, maybe up to 90 pitches. I wouldn't be too concerned with his workload. Not all that interested in Martinez, though. I think the big question mark is what you do with Zach Wheeler. I assume he'll be one of the more popular pitchers on the slate. He certainly should be, in my opinion. To take on a Reds team in Great American, so, some home run risk. Obviously, they have power. They also strike out a lot, do the Reds. And the Reds have also had a pretty soft schedule of pitchers that they've faced for the most part. So I do favor Wheeler in this matchup. He's looked really, really good. Took a no-hitter into the 8th inning against the White Sox last time out. Hasn't really had a hiccup the entire season so far. And yeah, expect more of the same for Wheeler. I think the strikeouts are almost certainly going to be there. Yeah, maybe he gives up a home run or two, but I think he has a very high floor and, in my opinion, also the highest ceiling of any pitcher on the slate. So in on Zach Wheeler here. I'm playing 150, so maybe a sprinkle of Nick Martinez. And I'll have some Phillies bats as well. Won't be going to too many Reds other than Mr. Ellie De La Cruz, who I got to get a piece of this guy no matter who they're facing. If it's a good pitcher like Wheeler, then you take the ownership discount, right? But he just has slate-breaking potential. We talk about all the time, each and every time he steps on the field, especially when he gets to swing from the left side, which you will here. So, yeah, that's Philadelphia, Cincinnati for me. What about you, Bryce? What do you see between these two teams?
Yeah, I think Wheeler's pretty much the clear-cut SP1 on this slate. I don't really think there's any debate for that. It's more like how you play him and like if you want to play him with the ownership that he's projected to get here. He's not going to come in cheap. I think the total chalk pairing here is Wheeler and then Simeon Woods Richardson.
Yeah.
Kind of leaves you enough money to do whatever you want with your bats and, get the 10K pitcher. So, I might be a little hesitant playing those two together just because I think it's going to be a super popular pairing. Like if you're playing Woods Richardson, maybe drop down a little bit at pitcher or, if you're playing Wheeler, maybe get up a little bit.
You're
Also
saying
have
that specifically the combination of the two.
Yeah, I think the combo, just because you're spending 14K on pitcher and you have like two of the better pitchers, like Woods Richardson is just way too cheap on this slate.
Yeah.
So I think that kind of leads people to spending more at SP2. So I think Wheeler's ownership could come in like even higher than projected. And, I'm seeing him around 45%. It wouldn't surprise me. I think that's kind of his floor here. So I'll likely be, I would guess, like 40% Wheeler. I don't think it's like an all-in type of play. I think he has the upside that you're looking for against the strikeout-heavy Cincinnati team facing 5 right-handed hitters. So, it's a tough fade, but I'll probably play it between 40 and 50%. Um, and then, the only Cincy bet, I really like is Ellie here. I think it's more like leverage one off, like 1 to 3 man stacks here for Cincinnati. If you want to play some bats, I don't think it's the worst idea just because, he will give up a couple home runs here and there. So, if you catch one or two and, he doesn't like get the strikeout upside in his outing, he's not going to be optimal. So I don't mind that. Cincinnati kind of just run of the mill offense for me here. Not super interested, mainly small stacks. Philly, I do have a little bit more interest in. Road teams in Great American, I always like, but it's not the best hitting weather for them here. So, and they're super expensive. Like, you don't really get any discounts on any of the bats here, besides maybe like an Alec Boehm type of guy. It's an expensive stack. I think it's a little bit better used in smaller stacks, full stacks. I will have some Philly 5-man here, but more of the shorter stacks for me, focusing on probably the better hitters here. I don't think I'm going to get to the bottom of this team or this lineup a whole lot. So I think it's more like a Schwarber, Trey Turner type of day for me in smaller stacks.
That all makes sense. Let me ask you a couple questions. You mentioned obviously not pairing or trying to limit your pairings of Wheeler and Woods Richardson. How do you even go about doing that? I honestly don't know.
Well, so what you could do is you could say you're playing 20 teams, you could make a rule where they can't be in the same lineup.
Sure,
like
but do you want to completely eliminate that?
No, like I'm saying, like, say you're making 20 teams, you can make them in batches of 10. I think would be the best way to do it. Or some optimizers let you, if this guy's in your lineup, then dock the other guy's projection. So I think that
you're right. So I mean, you could just
that would kind of be the other way to do it. I just think it's going to be like too high owned together. So I think the other way to approach it is to play more Woods Richardson and just kind of try and hit a lot of different combos with him and not always have him paired with Zach Wheeler.
Yeah, like for 150, you could do 2 sets of 75, right? One of them you make the rule where you can't pair them, and the other one you just let it run. So you do get
like I'm not saying to totally eliminate the pairing. I just think like when I was like hand building some teams, that just seemed like a super easy construction that I think a lot of people will go to.
Yeah, makes total sense to me. And then the other question I had, so I normally don't play, on a reasonable size slate. I don't know, 5-6 games or more. I don't allow hitters against my pitchers. It's kind of tempting with a player like Ellie De La Cruz to maybe make an exception. I see you frowning. Sounds like that's something you probably won't do.
I like to do it on shorter slates. Like
Me too.
I think on 3-game slates, I think I cut it to 2 batters, first pitchers. I think 4 to 5, I think is 1. And then 2-game slates, I allow 3 just because, it's a 2-game slate and you have to play 2 pitchers. Little less willing to do it on FanDuel where you only need one pitcher instead of 2 to be optimal. But on large slates, I just kind of eliminate it. Like, I mean, even if Ellie hits a bomb, he's so expensive, he probably needs 2. Like if Wheeler dominates to the point where he's optimal too. So I just think it's kind of thin on a larger slate, not really my cup of tea, but as you said, if there's a player to do it with, it's a high strikeout batter that has tons of home run power. So Ellie definitely fits the bill there.
And speed too, right? Because he can, in theory.
I mean, he'll run on Wheeler. He
runs on everybody.
And Wheeler's a pretty good running matchup. So we haven't even talked about that. I mean, he could score 20 points without scoring a run feasibly. It wouldn't be easy to do, but it's doable.
That's what I'm saying. He's one of the only guys that can do it. Him and Acuna, where he gets a walk, steals second or third, and doesn't score. And Wheeler is just fine, but all of a sudden Ellie's got 12 fantasy points in the first inning, right? So I do think with him specifically, it does make some sense to try that. And always trying to come up with new strategies, little edges that other people aren't thinking about. I think that could be one that you could at least consider on this slate with their Mr. Ellie De La Cruz, because he's a tough fade right now, given the way that he's putting up DFS production. Let's go to the next game on the slate. I think an interesting one here. Boston And Cleveland, we've got Tristan McKenzie on the hill for the Guardians. Chase Anderson going for the Red Sox. Two, I think, pretty bad pitchers. I did have some hope for McKenzie coming into the year, returning from, he pretty much missed all of last year from injury. Took all of one start for me to get completely off the McKenzie train and on the other side of it. I'm seeing McKenzie. I think he's going to get some ownership. Sabres got him projected around 25%. I think it'll come in a little bit lower than that, but I mean, you know, the numbers, or at least, you know, the market is kind of buying into Tristan McKenzie here. Boston has pretty low team total, sitting below 3.5 runs. So, you know, and McKenzie's pretty cheap at 7,700. So I get why people are looking at McKenzie. Obviously, that Boston lineup a little bit depleted, although they did get Devers and O'Neill back recently, who I think will both be in the lineup tonight or today. And then Wilyer Abreu. Yeah, Alex mentions that, crushing the ball. Yeah, we do have the Boston lineup.
Devers, no O'Neill.
Yeah, no O'Neill today. But McKenzie has been awful. If you look at, like, even, yes, the actual results have been bad. I know he pitched like his two okay games were against Oakland and the White Sox. The other one was in Seattle, a good strikeout matchup. And then, you know, when he faced the Yankees, he gave up 6 walks with 1 strikeout, -5 DraftKings points. He hasn't been able to throw strikes. Velocity's been down, hasn't been getting any whiffs. I just think he doesn't have it right now, watching this guy pitch. And, you know, I wish it was better hitting weather in Cleveland. I wish this Red Sox lineup was a little bit better, but I got to stack some against a somewhat chalky Tristan McKenzie, just given my belief in his current talent level. So I'm absolutely in on Boston. We'll have a bunch of them myself. And then I like the Guardians side too. Chase Anderson, definitely a pitcher you want to pick on. So a pretty low total in this game, sitting at 7.5 runs. It's cool, wind blowing in Cleveland. I get all that. But I'm going to be over the field on both of these offenses myself. What about you, Bryce? What do you see, Boston and Cleveland?
I'm going to be under on this game as a whole, hitters and pitchers. McKenzie probably comes in around 20 and 25%. I think that's too high. You know, his strikeout prop's not even good. It's 5.5. You know, under is pretty heavily juiced. You know, 7,700. You know, on a slate when you have a good 4K pitcher is a lot less, you know, appealing to me as opposed to like a slate where, you know, you don't have a really good cheap option. So I'm likely going to be under on McKenzie here. You know, as you said, it's really crappy hitting weather. Wind's blowing in. It's cold. Don't really see myself getting anything besides like small stacks or one-offs here. You know, Boston has some upside batters. You know, Duran and Devers are kind of the two. And then Abreu would be my favorite cheap bet on the Boston side. So there's your 3-man stack if you're looking for one from Boston and want to get some leverage on McKenzie. But I don't really see myself having any interest in 5-mans here from either team. And I will going to be under on both hitters and pitchers. I think there's more appealing games to go to for both.
Yeah, I get it. I think that's going to be the approach that most take, though. I'm seeing Boston hitters projected under 5% owned across the board. Yeah, I'll be over on that number. I'll say this too about McKenzie. At least in these last 2 years, obviously they changed the stolen base rules before last season. Prior to that, it had been kind of tough to run on him, but since then, he's pitched a grand total of 34 innings in the last 2 years combined. 9 steals, 0 caught stealings in 34 innings against Tristan McKenzie. So these Boston guys that have some speed, Jarren Duran, of course, at the top being the big one, but I think Abreu can run. Hamilton down there. Rafaela, he's hitting 9th today, but he's cheap and probably will steal a base. And I think we could see Boston off to the races here against McKenzie, who is walking way too many guys as well. So I'm obviously higher on Boston than Bryce is. And I definitely like the Boston side a little bit more than the Cleveland side, but I will have a fair bit of both of these offenses for sure. No interest for me in either pitcher. Full fade on McKenzie. I'll let other people play a pitcher I think sucks at 20% ownership and not even that cheap of a price point. So I guess strong takes from me there on Boston, Cleveland. Let's get to White Sox and Minnesota next. We've already talked a bunch about Simeon Woods Richardson coming in at the stone minimum 4K. Pitched really well when he got a chance back on April 13th against the Tigers. Got through 6 innings in that one, 5 strikeouts. Hasn't been great at the AAA level this year, but we saw enough, I think, in that start against Detroit to say he's a reasonable arm pitching. I don't think he's some budding ace or anything like that, but I think he's certainly good enough to put up a decent score against this White Sox team at that price point. I assume he's going to be very popular. I don't know, maybe 40% owned, something like that. And he'll go against Mike Soroka, who has looked just as bad or even worse than McKenzie. He's been terrible. He just doesn't really seem to have much of anything. Every time I watch him, I wish I had even more hitters against him than I sometimes do. I like this Twins squad a little bit here against Soroka. Not the best hitting weather in target field, but that's kind of a theme on this show overall. So give me some Twins bats. Give me a lot of Simeon Woods Richardson. And as usual, I will not be playing many White Sox whatsoever. What about you, Bryce? White Sox and Twins.
The White Sox will go unowned as they always do. Hitting, I don't really have a ton of interest in them here. Soroka, don't really have any interest in as well. As you said, it's just there are so many better spots on this slate. Moving over to the Twins, hitting and pitching are going to come in pretty high. Their bats are pretty much free. They have a really good team total. I know it's not the best hitting weather, but as you said, Soroka sucks, which is kind of the trump card there. I'm likely going to be slightly under on the Twins bats here just because I'm expecting them to be pretty popular. I will have a good amount of Twins, but I'm not going nuts on them or anything. It's just like if you want to fit in some of these like super expensive like Dodgers or like Coors guys, cheap pitching or cheap hitting, you need to find somewhere, and the Twins are the best place to find it on each side today, according to projections. I like Simeon Woods Richardson here. 4K for a pitcher that can get you 20. I don't think he's going to be like crazy limited on his pitch count or anything. Even if he gets you like 15, that's a really good score for 4K. I see myself having a decent amount of him today. Probably slightly above the field. I'm hoping he doesn't come in as high as 40%, but I think 30 to 40 is very like the likely range for him. I don't think he gets higher than that. It's still a pretty big slate. So I like the Twins. I don't think anyone in the industry is going to disagree with you and pick the White Sox like outright here. So they're definitely going to carry ownership. I think the top of the order, kind of 1 through 6 is where I'm focusing. I don't love the bottom of the Twins order, especially at home where they could get limited at bats. And I think there's a pretty big talent gap down there. So kind of top of the order Twins. You can play them 5-mans and do literally whatever you want. You can play them 3-mans with if you play them with Richardson, you can fill out the rest of your team however you want. You can get all the expensive Dodger bats, you can get all the expensive Coors bats and Wheeler. So that's why I think they'll be popular. And I'll have a good amount, but I'm not going crazy on them or anything.
Yeah, the one thing that worries me with the Twins, I absolutely love their matchup to start the game against Soroka, but the Twins do pinch hit about as much as any team, and they will do so. They'll do so in the 4th inning if it comes down to it, if there's a decent spot. The problem is all the Twins that you want are the guys who might be pinch hit for it. Kirilloff, Julian, Larnach, Kepler, all pretty significant, honestly, pinch hit risks in this game. The White Sox do have 2 available lefties out of the pen, one of which, Tanner Banks, hasn't pitched in 3 days and can throw sometimes 2 innings. And I could see him being the first guy out of the pen when Soroka exits, probably fairly early in this game. So I'm a little worried about that. It's kind of torn on it because I really do like the matchup against Soroka, but nothing worse than having your hitter get removed after 2 at-bats in the 5th inning. So, for that reason, I will be a little bit lower, I think, on the Twins in the field, but I do certainly expect them to do some damage early. It might take their, over 5, first 5 run line, something like that with the Twins, because I do think they're going to do some damage here against Soroka. But I'm certainly worried about that pinch hit risk. And if you do want to go against the field today, I might stack the White Sox on a couple teams, because we know Richardson's going to be super popular. He's still an unproven arm, and you just get massive leverage against the field. Not going crazy with it, but I don't think it's the craziest thing to throw in at least a couple White Sox stacks in there.
I mean, they have some power. Like Sheets and
Yeah.
Jimenez can hit one out. I think if you're doing that, it's better off to do like smaller, like high upside stacks, because there's not a lot of batters in this lineup that have tons of upside. I think it's like favorite 3-man would probably be like Sheets, Eloy, and maybe Paul DeJong.
Yeah.
Don't mind that. He still has some power at the bottom of the order there.
Yeah, Sheets and Eloy, I think, are the best two by far. And then I would agree with you. I think DeJong comes in third. I'll mix those guys in on non-Richardson teams. Let's get to the next game on the slate. This one does have significant weather concern in Kansas City. Toronto and the Royals scheduled to play, but I believe raining right now in Kansas City, and looks like more thunderstorms on the way throughout the afternoon. Actually, it looks like it's not raining quite yet, but the rain is coming to Kansas City for sure. Pulling up the radar now. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be risky. It's going to be kind of a tough call here, I think. I could see it going either way. If the game does play, it's going to be Jose Barrios pitching for the Blue Jays against Cole Reagans on the other side. I don't know, Bryce. I think it's going to be tough for me to roster either of these pitchers, given the risk of rain delay or postponement, and given some of the other, I think, pretty damn good pitching options on this slate. So as of right now, I'm kind of leaning just not playing this game, but it doesn't start for 2.5 hours, so we do have some time to monitor the weather and make a final call. If it does play, I do think Reagans is a pretty strong play. He had a rough start last time out, but a very, very talented pitcher. I would expect him to right the ship. Don't mind Barrios at that $9,400 price tag. It's a little pricey for him, but he's been good this year. I guess talk about what you're doing with this game with the weather, and then if it does play, which players are you going to go to?
Yeah, I think this is a game that people just immediately X out. They see bad weather. 2 decent pitchers, not like great pitchers, and 2 like solid offenses in a low total game with crappy weather. I think it's a super easy fade for a lot of people. Just because of that, if I think it plays, I'm going to have like minimal amounts of the pitching and the hitting. If I think there's a mid-game delay, I think the pitchers are, the easiest fade. I'm not going to spend tons of time here just because, I don't think this game is going to make or break the slate either way. Like these guys are going to come in at, sub 1%. So, if you have a strong hitting take here and you think the game plays, I think stacking would be kind of interesting, but I don't love either team as a stack personally. I don't really see myself playing this game much. And I'd have more interest in the pitchers if you think you can get enough out of them in terms of game time. So, it's a little hard to make the call 3 hours in advance. Right now, I'm full fading this game, but if the weather improves, I'll probably get some Reagans in my teams. And I don't hate Barrios, but as you said, there's pretty strong pitching options today, and I don't think it's a risk that you necessarily need to take here.
Yeah, I think you can certainly just go ahead and X out this game. Like you said, that is what most people are going to do. If the game does start and looks like it's got a decent chance to finish at some point during the day, I will throw in kind of just full stacks of a couple of them on both sides, just because like you said, I mean, you might get these guys 1% or less, some of them, and it's baseball. Anything can happen. They both have reasonable offenses. But it will be, I'm not playing any one-offs, anything like that from this game. If I'm playing it, it's the full stack. You might as well just get in there and hope it plays. And obviously, you never know. You might get an outlier outcome that nobody else has. So that's Toronto, Kansas City. Again, if you're playing just a few lineups, I think the smart thing to do is just not worry about it. Move on to the other 7 games on this slate. Let's get to Houston and Chicago next. Justin Verlander pitching for the Astros, making his second start of the year. Javier Assad, who's been pretty good here in the early going for the Cubs, will go up against Houston. 50 degrees, some winds blowing in at Wrigley, so Definitely a good pitching environment. And I do think we'll see some ownership, especially, I believe, on the Verlander side of this equation. I do think he might come in as maybe the third or fourth highest owned pitchers. It's going to be Wheeler, Richardson, I think, clearly the two highest owned, and then maybe McKenzie, Verlander next. I'm probably not playing much Justin Verlander here, Bryce. I think his skills are in decline. I mean, that's what happens when he gets to 41, 42 years old, however old he is. Didn't have quite the same strikeout stuff last year. Missed all of spring with I think it was a shoulder that was bothering him a little bit. And 78 pitches last time out against Washington. He pitched pretty well in that start, but he's the guy I'll be, I think, probably lower on a lot in general this year as he kind of ages. And so I get it. I get targeting this game due to the prime pitching conditions, but I don't love a chalk Justin Verlander on this slate, or probably most times throughout the season. And then I know Houston hasn't been quite as good this year, but I don't like really picking on them either. So this one I'm somewhat low on. It's hard to love the hitting here in this weather as well. So won't be a ton of Houston and Chicago for me. What about you between the Cubs and the Astros here?
Yeah, I don't really love old guys in general. In any sport, I think they're some of the easiest fades in general. That being said, I am a Wrigley win believer, and I'm super win sensitive. So, not really going to play many hitters in this game. I think if you are playing it, it would be the Houston side. These guys have some power that they can hit home runs anywhere, even if the wind's blowing in, but not my favorite play. I'm likely to be under on this game as a whole. I think Verlander will probably come in around, I would say 10 to 15% for me. I'm not full fading him, but I'm definitely not going to be taking an over stance here on him. Assad, I'll have a bit of Assad. It's a 7-game slate, and if the KC game doesn't play, that gets knocked down. So,
yeah.
I think there's some upside there, especially if Woods Richardson doesn't get it done here. I think some of these like mid-tier pitchers will, the builds will go more towards them than like the super high-end pitching with like Wheeler and the super low end with Woods Richardson that we were talking about earlier. So for that reason, I will have some Assad. Don't love the matchup for him. Don't like picking on Houston, and even in Wrigley Wind, I don't see myself going to either of these guys much. I don't really see myself getting a lot of leverage off of Verlander either. I think the Cubs lineup took a pretty big hit without Bellinger. He's having a really good season, and I just don't necessarily see the upside against him today. I think if I was taking someone, it would be more like a Nico Horner type than anyone else. A guy that can get it done on the base paths as well. So not my favorite play though.
Yeah, if you switch the direction of the wind and warmed it up 10 degrees, I would be going with a lot of Cubs here, but not the case. So yeah, I'm with you. Going to be a game that I'm pretty low on in general, and I don't know if I'll full fade Verlander, but I'll definitely be way under the field. Just don't feel super good about him in general at the moment. Let's keep it moving. Just a couple more games to talk about. 3 more games to talk about. Seattle, Texas, the next one on the list. Lefty Andrew Heaney going for the Texas Rangers. He's a kind of a Jekyll and Hyde type of pitcher. Certainly has his good outings where he can rack up strikeouts, and he'll have some real bad ones too, where he gets the long ball, it can get wild. He's a good pitcher, I think, to stack against in general, including today. I kind of like this Mariners team. They've got some right-handed power. Julio Rodriguez has come alive a little bit. Guys like Haniger, Garver, Ty France, all those guys I think makes for pretty strong plays here against Andrew Heaney. So I'm absolutely in on Seattle, particularly the top half of the lineup. And then Luis Castillo pitching for the Mariners. He got off to a slow start, but has really turned it around in these last 2. Pitched well against the Cubs and then dominated the Rockies in Coors Field. 7 shutout innings, 9 strikeouts in that one. And he should come in, I think, pretty low owned here. I played some Bryce Miller yesterday due to the ownership. He was like 4% owned. I thought that was way too low. Didn't quite work out. Didn't have his best outing, but I did like the play, and I like the Castillo play too here. He'll be higher owned than that, but I still think a little bit low for his talent level, despite a relatively tough matchup against the Rangers. I do like Castillo here. Won't be playing too many Rangers bats myself. So, yeah, Mariners side, both hitting and pitching is what I'm looking at. What about you, Bryce?
I like this game for pitching and hitting. As you said, you get 2 really high strikeout pitchers, but, are prone to blow up outings, especially Heaney. So, I've kind of, said I'm going to be under on a lot of these games. These are the games that I plan to get over on. Castillo should be my biggest buy pitcher today. I'm seeing him around 15%. And if anything, I think that might be a little high. I'm looking to get it about double the field on Castillo. Kind of invert like him and Verlander's ownership was kind of like what I was thinking in my head. So like 10 to 15% on Verlander, and then 25 to like 35 on Castillo is kind of like where I had come into the show thinking I'll end up on them. So I think he has, he's turned things around. I think he has a lot of strikeout upside here. He does have some downside, so like I'm not going to be eliminating Ranger stacks here. They do have a lot of upside, and they hit home runs, and they have some guys who can steal bases too. So I will have some Texas. I'll have more Seattle. I'm going to have some Heaney too. I think he's a super high upside pitcher. Obviously, like if Woods Richardson fails, you get Heaney to have a good game in 6K. That gives you insane leverage. So, I expect him to be a buy and Seattle to be a buy. I like the Seattle offense a good amount here. I think they come in not as high owned as they should be. So I think it's a pretty good leverage spot. These next 2 games are going to carry the weight for hitting ownership here, I think. So I'm going to be over on pretty much everything in this game. I think my biggest buy here will be Castillo. Second will be Seattle offense. Third will be Heaney, and then there will be like a gap down to Texas. I'll likely be around the field on them, just because while I do like Castillo, I could see Texas having a breakout game. They're just a really solid offense, and I want some exposure to them on this slate.
Yeah, it makes total sense to me. We're both pretty high on this game in general between the Rangers and the Mariners. We did just get the Texas lineup. Looks pretty normal outside of Jonah Heim, but it's a scary lineup, and they're kind of coming alive. They got Nathaniel Lowe back. Evan Carter started to hit a little bit. Adelise Garcia absolutely crushing it. So, yeah, I think playing both sides, Castillo and getting at least a little bit of exposure to the Rangers makes sense to me. Let's get to the final 2 games on this slate. Please hit the like button if you haven't yet done so. And, we got a big day of sports. So we do have everything you need over at runforyoursports.com. Promo code DC15 will get you 15% off first weekly or monthly payment. Let's get to the final 2 games here. We've got San Diego and Colorado, another Coors Field game, which looked like it was going to erupt last night. I think the Padres get 4 first-inning runs, and then it was kind of petered out from there. I was very in on the Padres, so that was disappointing. We've seen Coors Field. I haven't looked up the numbers. I assume it's gone under the total, 70% of the time.
Almost every slate.
Yeah.
There's been a couple slates, but yeah, it's
I've
been
played a lot
disappointing to start the year.
Yeah, it's been annoying. But another big total sitting at 11. Padres expected to score about 6 runs. Colorado about 5. 2 bad right-handed pitchers on the hill. We've got Randy Vasquez pitching for the Padres, Dakota Hudson for the Rockies, and I'll be taking the bait again, Bryce, and going back to some Coors Field on the slate. Seems like you're regrettably going to agree with me, and just keep banging our head against the wall, right?
Yeah, Coors isn't going to be dead the rest of the season. It's some of the better hitting weather that Colorado's seen so far.
Beautiful day here in Colorado.
I do question the upside of the Padres in general. They just don't have a ton of guys who are going to go out and hit home runs. But, it's about the best matchups you can ask for. Dakota Hudson and Randy Vasquez are two dust balls. I want nothing to do with them. I think my biggest buy hitting is likely going to be the Rockies side. As ugly as that is to say, I'm seeing them coming in super under-owned compared to what I think their upside is. I think the Rockies still have significant upside. McMahon, Diaz, some of these guys are pretty decent home run hitters. Compared to the Rockies, they suck, but I think it's about the best spot that you can get them in. They're going to be low owned. You have money to spend on them. They're not that cheap, which I like because it's going to get people off of them. So I'm going to be buying both sides of this game. I'll have more Padres than Rockies, but like ownership comparatively, I'll have more like leverage on the Rockies, I assume. Don't want anything to do with pitching here. Tatis is the top overall hitter on the slate for me. I think Jake Cronenworth is too cheap. He's 4.4K. In baseball, that doesn't really matter quite as much, but playing cash games and whatnot, I'll have the cash charts up after the show. He seems like a core play for me there. And then, I don't have any strong takes on like how to best stack the Padres lineup all the way through. I typically try and get a decent amount of like front and back guys, but I'm playing 150 teams. I'll have it stacked a decent amount of ways. Rockies lineup, I like the higher upside guys here. Like a guy like Brenton Doyle to me always goes like under-owned in these spots because he's expensive. He doesn't hit near the top of the order. You're going to get him at, sub 5%, I assume. So I think guys like him, McMahon, Diaz, not like I'm excluding Blackman and whatnot, but I just kind of like the higher upside bats a little bit more to pick out specific ones.
Yeah, agree with all that. The one guy I'll throw in there, Hunter Goodman, the Rockies' one of their top prospects, big power guy, 2,500 should be hitting ninth, I think, today. But I'd be surprised if he wasn't in the lineup. And he hit 34 home runs in 115, something like that, 105 minor league games. He's already got 7 on the year in AAA this season. 70 grade raw power over at FanGraphs. So the dude can absolutely mash.
Love that.
Yeah.
I'll be tossing some Goodman into my teams.
Bury him all the way down there in the lineup so we get him a little bit lower. But yeah, Hunter Goodman going to be one of my highest owned players today. No question about it, assuming he does indeed make the lineup. I don't have a ton more to add. I mean, I'm playing this game on this slate. You can easily afford it with the pitching, and we'll be hoping maybe we get an eruption spot in Coors Field where it seems like we're due for one at this point. All right, we'll do the last game on the slate. We'll do stacks, pitchers, home run calls, that fun stuff. Once we get through the Dodgers and the Washington Nationals, interesting pitching matchup here. Yamamoto pitching for the Dodgers, Mackenzie Gore pitching for the Nationals. Gore remains one of my kind of favorite breakout pitchers this year. His stuff way up across the board. He is coming off a little bit of a rough outing against the Astros, but that's one of the best teams against left-handed pitchers in general. Prior to that, he had a monster game against the A's. Obviously, the two kind of opposite matchups there, but 11 strikeouts in that one. He kind of showed you the upside that he has. And this Dodgers team, obviously it's not a team that we are picking on, but their numbers against lefties on the year are kind of average across the board. Makes some sense. I mean, 2 of their better hitters, obviously Ohtani, Freeman, get neutralized a little bit by the lefty-lefty matchup. I'm seeing Gore projected at, I mean, he's not going to be 1% owned, but that's what Saber has him at right now. He is going to be very, very low owned. I'm in on some Mackenzie Gore at that number. He's got upside, I think, even against the Dodgers team. It is possible, too. We see, a prominent Dodger get a rest in this one. I don't believe we have their lineup, but it is a day game, and I don't think like Betts, Ohtani, Freeman, I don't think they've missed a game yet. So I wouldn't be surprised if, they give, especially Ohtani or Freddie Freeman, the lefty, one of those guys hits out. Wouldn't surprise me. So I'm on Gore here. I'm not going to go crazy with it, but I will be way over the field on that low ownership number. And I like Yamamoto too. I know, the overall numbers on the season don't look that great, but he's still being held back by that South Korea start, which I think at this point I just kind of removing that from the equation when evaluating Yamamoto. He's also faced really low strikeout upside teams. Mets, Padres, Cubs, his last three matchups, all three of those teams do a good job of putting the ball in play. But he's struck out over 30% of batters in each of those three games. Now he gets a Washington team that is a pretty good matchup. Not perfect, but a pretty good matchup for Yamamoto. Up to 99 pitches. He's actually increased his pitch count in each of his five starts, 43, 68, 80, 91, and then 99. Last time out, got through 6 innings, his longest start of the year so far. So I think Yamamoto might be a guy who's kind of coming into his prime and maybe isn't quite viewed as the ace that I think he is, Bryce. So I think we could potentially get, people are going to play Yamamoto, but I think he might be a little bit underowned here. And there's enough value on the slate to play Yamamoto and Zach Wheeler together if you want to. Something I'll certainly be doing a decent amount. So I like the pitching here more than the hitting. Obviously, the Dodger bats are always in play against anybody, but I do have enough faith in Gore to mostly look elsewhere. But I do really like both these pitchers just kind of in general. What about you, Bryce? Dodgers and Nationals.
Yeah, Gore, I agree with you long term. It's pretty much the worst spot he can get. It obviously helps if, one of these Dodgers lefties sits today, which we might not know before the slate, but I'm assuming that we get the lineups. There's a chance that we don't. Gore is probably going to be between 5 and 10% owned for me. I think that'll make him a solid buy here. Not a guy I'm going nuts on, but I think he does have the upside that you're looking for. So I think it's a decent leverage play here. Likely going to be over on Dodgers bats too. I think it's like these guys just have so much upside every time they take the field. I think I'm not going to full fade the Dodgers or anything. I'm gonna have some Dodgers here. SaberSim has the Dodgers super high owned. I think Coors comes in way higher owned than the Dodgers. They're just way more expensive and have way worse team total. So use that how you may. I'm not going nuts on the Dodgers here, but I think they're still a good 5-man stack here. I think they're good as one-offs, especially like a Mookie Betts type of guy. I like the right-handers against Gore a lot more, but you can't discount Ohtani if he's in there against a lefty. You guy can hit a home run against anyone. So
dude is dialed in right now, Ohtani.
He really is. It would help Gore a ton, obviously, if he somehow didn't make the lineup, as you said. I don't think him or Freeman have gotten a good day of rest. So seems like a good spot to do it. Hitting wise, Nats, they've shown more upside this year than I kind of penciled them in for, but look how many lefties Yamamoto is going to face here. I think if you're playing them, it would be like the lefties, like Abrams, Gallo would be like my favorite ones, as one-offs. But I'm likely going to be over on Yamamoto here. He kind of falls into the Castillo bin for me in terms of guys who are going to go overlooked for a Wheeler or a Verlander type of guy when, I think they should be much closer in ownership to them. Probably going to be around 20 to 25% Yamamoto here, which I think will be solidly ahead of the field. I see him coming in around 10%. So kind of taking the Castillo approach, want to be double the field on these guys. I think they have a lot of upside, and it's a pretty good way to get yourself unique and still be able to play some of these bats that we want to play.
Yeah, I think it's a sneaky good spot for Yamamoto. Obviously, it's very small sample size here, but Yamamoto on the season striking out 38% of lefties versus 27% of righties, and we know National's going to run out a ton of left-handed bats, including guys like Gallo who have massive strikeout rates. I will say, CJ Abrams, he's not obviously quite in the Ellie De La Cruz range, but he's not far behind with the power speed combo guys. There's just not that many of them in MLB who have the opportunity to break a slate with power and speed each and every time out. So he would be my favorite Nationals bat, but very high on Yamamoto here, and I'll be well over the field on him. No question about that. That's all 8 games. It might be a 7-game slate, obviously, with the weather in KC. Let's do top overall stacks and then contrarian stacks as we normally do. I will go first, and this is probably stealing yours, but my favorite stack today is the Rockies. They also, I think, will be at least a little bit contrarian. But I think they're going to have a good day here against Randy Vasquez. Don't forget about Hunter Goodman down in that, hopefully in the 9-hole. And then contrarian stack. Yeah, I don't know. This probably won't even be that contrarian either, but I will go with the Mariners against the lefty Andrew Heaney. They'll get some ownership for sure, but I really do like them. I think they got some big power upside against Heaney. Over to you, Bryce. I might have taken 2 of your favorites, but favorite stack, favorite contrarian stack.
Yeah, I mean we can double up on them.
Yeah.
I'm going to consider the Rockies contrarian here. I think they come in way lower owned. I mean, favorite stack for me is the Padres. It's a Coors day for me, and that's why I kind of want to get different at pitching. I think Yamamoto and Castillo are 2 really good ways to get different at pitching. So, like those, really like your Mariners call as well. So yeah, I think the Phillies are worth a look here too against Nick Martinez. I know it's not the best hitting weather in Cincy, but it's still a good home run ballpark regardless of that.
Yeah, for sure. Most important pitcher, roughly defined, is the guy you think you'll be most over the field on. I'll actually give 2 here from the same game. I'm not going to have a ton of Mackenzie Gore, but given his projected ownership, I will be well over the field on him. And then Yamamoto. Sounds like we're both in on Yamamoto. I think, like I said, a sneaky good matchup for him. I'm a big believer in his long term, and I think he's maybe has his first true slate breaking performance against the Nationals team. Looks like he'll be not low owned, but lower in my opinion than he should be. So Gore and Yamamoto for me. What about you, Bryce?
I'll go Castillo and Yamamoto. Talked him up a good amount. Definitely with you on Yamamoto, and I think we both agree on Castillo as well here. So
yeah,
really like the spot for both. I think Yamamoto is safer, obviously, but Castillo's recent performance coupled with strikeout upside is really nice to me. I know it's a tough matchup, but that's why he's going to come on lower owned than he should.
Yeah, and we'll both have plenty of Wheeler and Simeon Woods Richardson too, but so in the field. That's why we're listing these other guys that we're going to have mixed in there in a significant amount of our lineups. Home run call. I got to go with my guy Hunter Goodman for the Rockies. Again, don't have that lineup yet. I would be pretty surprised if he wasn't in it. Big power guy, top prospect, and certainly a good matchup in Coors Field against Randy Vasquez and the Padres. Home run call from you, Bryce.
I think catcher is kind of hard to fill out today. I'll go Elias Diaz. Really like the Rockies power bats today.
All right. And then favorite overall hitter on this slate. This one, an easy one for me. Jarren Duran leading off for the Red Sox against Tristan McKenzie. Again, I talked a lot about just thinking McKenzie doesn't quite have it right now. Duran running wild this season. You can certainly steal bases against McKenzie. I think we get a couple steals in the first inning. We'll be off to the races. Maybe we'll get the poor man's home run, walk, a couple steals, a run, and just as good as going yard. So Jarren Duran, my favorite overall hitter on this slate. What about you, Bryce? Favorite hitter on the slate?
Tough for me to get away from Tatis. He's his upside. You're talking about guys who can hit home runs and steal bases. He definitely falls into that category. Just tough for me to fade him on a main team today. Even if you don't like the Padres because of what could be limited upside in terms of power, he plays well as a one-off. He plays well in 3-mans. I do like the Duran call. I love the draft cheat stolen base angles.
It's a good one today. I think Jaron Durant, I'll be surprised if he's not off to the races if he gets the chance. But that'll do it for this show. We do appreciate you guys watching. As always, hit the like button on your way out if you haven't yet done so. And fun day of sports with MLB, NBA, NFL draft tonight. Hopefully some of you guys have some success, see some RPS logos at the top of the tournaments, hopefully. And the show will be back same time, or not same time, same place tomorrow. It'll be normal time, 4:45 Eastern time tomorrow, I believe, with Stats and Steve Boynton. But that'll do it for today. Good luck to everybody for Third and Schlong on Draft Cheat. We're out of here.